This video uses AI-generated imagery and visualizations to illustrate historical events. November 9, 1983. Deep inside a hardened bunker in East Germany, Soviet Air Force commanders receive an order that has never been issued in peacetime. Nuclear warheads are to be loaded onto combat aircraft. Immediately, the Fourth Air Army is going to war. 75 mobile nuclear missile launchers vanish into the forests of Eastern Europe, camouflaged and dispersed to field positions. A Soviet submarine slides silently under the Arctic ice. 11,000 nuclear warheads are placed on maximum combat alert. And here is the terrifying part. NATO had absolutely no idea any of this was happening. This is Able Archer 83, a NATO training exercise so realistic, so meticulously simulated, that the Soviet Union began preparing a preemptive nuclear strike to stop it. To understand how a military drill nearly ended civilization, you have to go back to 1981, because the match that lit this fuse was struck 2 years before the exercise began. In May 1981, a closed-session meeting took place in Moscow, one of the most consequential gatherings in Cold War history. General Secretary Leonid Brezhnev stood before senior KGB officers and made a stunning declaration. The United States, Brezhnev announced, was actively preparing for nuclear war against the Soviet Union. KGB Chairman Yuri Andropov rose and confirmed it. And then he announced the response. Operation Ryan Raketno-Yadерное Napadenie, nuclear missile attack. The largest peacetime intelligence gathering operation in Soviet history had just been born. KGB station chiefs across Western Europe, Japan, and the Third World received personal directives. Their mission: watch for signs. Any signs that the West was preparing a surprise nuclear first strike. The indicator list was vast. Check the lighting in government buildings late at night. Monitor blood bank stock levels. Observe the movements of NATO policymakers. Note any change, any deviation from routine. The problem was structural. Station chiefs felt implicit pressure to report alarming findings, even when they didn't believe them. As double agent Oleg Gordievsky later revealed, the result was a vicious spiral of intelligence gathering and evaluation. Agents reported ordinary British blood donation drives as evidence of wartime blood stockpiling. Ordinary blood drives. Ryan was not preventing nuclear war. It was manufacturing the conditions for one. Now, layer on top of that, Ronald Reagan. Elected in 1980, the new American president wasted no time signaling what kind of adversary he intended to be. March 8, 1983, Orlando, Florida. Reagan addresses the National Association of Evangelicals and calls the Soviet Union, quote, the focus of evil in the modern world. In Moscow, the Soviet state press agency TASS responded that the words proved the Reagan administration could only think in terms of confrontation and, quote, bellicose, lunatic anti-communism. 14 days later, Reagan announced the Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, a proposed missile shield that Soviet analysts immediately identified as something far more dangerous than defense. If America could shoot down Soviet missiles in flight, then America could launch a first strike, absorb whatever retaliation survived, and win. At least that was the Soviet calculation, and it terrified them. Then came the Pershing II. NATO was deploying intermediate-range nuclear missiles in Western Germany. From launch to detonation near Moscow, 4 to 6 minutes. No time for a Soviet response. The Pershing II carried a W-85 warhead, variable yield between 5 and 80 kilotons. Its radar guidance system gave it an accuracy of 30 meters. 30 meters. It could thread a nuclear warhead through a hardened command bunker's ventilation shaft. The Soviet High Command looked at the Pershing II and saw one thing: a first-strike weapon, a decapitation tool, a missile designed not to deter, but to destroy their ability to fight back before they could react. The psychological pressure on both sides was immense. The Americans were running deliberate provocation operations, carrier battle groups probing Soviet airspace undetected, Navy fighters buzzing Soviet military installations. In April 1983, 6 U.S. Navy F-14 Tomcats from USS Enterprise and USS Midway conducted a simulated bombing run directly over a Soviet military installation at Zeleny Island in the Kurils. The Soviet Air Force did not detect them for hours. To Moscow, these were not provocations. They were tests, probes of Soviet radar coverage, rehearsals for the real thing. Every incident added another data point to Ryan's paranoid calculus. Then, September 1st, 1983, Korean Airlines Flight 007, a Boeing 747 carrying 269 people, drifts off course over the Pacific and enters Soviet airspace twice. Soviet interceptor pilot Major Gennady Osipovich fires 2 K-8 missiles at the aircraft from 3 miles behind. The cockpit crew never know he is there. One or both missiles strike the 747 at 35,000 feet. KAL 007 spirals down into the Sea of Japan in vast, widening circles. All 269 people aboard are killed. Among them, U.S. Congressman Larry McDonald of Georgia. Reagan called it a massacre, an act of barbarism. U.S.-Soviet relations hit their lowest point since the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the world had no idea that something even more dangerous was still 26 days away. September 26, 1983, just south of Moscow, inside the hardened Serpukhov 15 command bunker, Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov sits down for his duty shift at the controls of the Soviet early warning satellite network. The satellite system is called OKO. It watches for ICBM launches from American soil. At midnight, a single word appears on Petrov's screen: launch. One American ICBM. Then the system updates. 4 more, 5 missiles inbound. The automated system is not issuing a warning, it is issuing a launch order. Petrov has to decide, right now. He helped write the code for the OKO system. He knows it can malfunction. He also knows that a genuine American first strike would involve hundreds of simultaneous launches, not 5. He waits. 23 minutes of silence from land radar, which cannot see beyond the horizon. The missiles don't arrive. Petrov calls it a false alarm. He is right. A rare alignment of sunlight on high-altitude clouds had fooled the satellite sensors. Petrov saves the world. He is not decorated. The incident is suppressed. It stays classified for 15 years. And 37 days later, the second near miss of 1983 begins. Autumn 1983. NATO is preparing its annual command post exercise. Every year, Allied commanders rehearse the unthinkable, coordinating a nuclear war against the Warsaw Pact. This year's exercise is called Able Archer 83. Able Archer is part of the larger Autumn Forge exercise cycle. What comes before it is already alarming enough. A 170-flight, radio-silent airlift of 19,000 American soldiers to Europe. No radio, no public announcement, just troops appearing. Soviet signals intelligence is watching all of it. The radio silence alone is a deviation from routine, and Ryan's instructions are explicit. Watch for deviations. Then Able Archer begins on November 2nd, and for the first time in the exercise's history, everything is different. New coded communications formats never before intercepted. Extended radio silence, something called a shift to the alternate warhead quarters. The exercise exercise simulates every DEFCON level from 5 to 1. DEFCON 1 means nuclear war is imminent and may begin at any moment. Soviet intelligence doctrine says that when DEFCON 1 is declared, war is inevitable. NATO aircraft practice loading dummy nuclear warheads. They taxi down runways in warhead-loaded configurations. At multiple points during the exercise, NATO personnel refer to B-52 sorties as nuclear strikes, out loud in unencrypted communications. Senior political leaders participate in the nuclear simulations. British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, West German Chancellor Helmut Kohl. The exercise is supposed to make NATO's nuclear command chain more realistic. It succeeds beyond anyone's intention. Reagan, Bush, and Weinberger were all scheduled to participate. National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane, 2 weeks into his new job, recognizes this would be interpreted by Soviet intelligence as unprecedented and vetoes their inclusion. Meanwhile, in the Soviet intelligence world, the preceding weeks have already been catastrophic. Late October, communications between Washington and London spiked dramatically. Soviet analysts don't know it's because of the Grenada invasion. Ryan flags it as a pre-attack indicator. American bases tightened security because of the Beirut barracks bombing. To Ryan's operators, this looks like pre-strike base lockdown. Every innocent explanation has a terrifying Soviet mirror image. November 2nd, the day Able Archer begins, Marshal Nikolai Ogarkov, chief of the Soviet General Staff, reportedly moves to his wartime command bunker deep beneath Moscow. He orders a heightened alert for some forces. In the greatest secrecy, so as not to generate the crisis he fears he is already inside. November 5th, KGB Moscow Center sends a telegram to the London Residency. The assessment is clinical and chilling. A NATO strike could come with as little as 7 to 10 days warning from preliminary political decision to launch order. November 7th, NATO's nuclear release phase begins. Saussure formally requests political authorization to use nuclear weapons. It is scripted. It is theater. But to Soviet signal intelligence officers reading the encrypted traffic, it reads as real. And then, November 7th is also Revolution Day, the most significant holiday in the Soviet calendar. Soviet military doctrine held that a surprise attack was most likely on a holiday, when Soviet forces would be at minimum readiness. The exercise had started on the one day of the year when Soviet commanders were doctrinally most primed to believe an attack was coming. Whether this was coincidence or planning, no one in NATO ever clarified. November 8th. The intelligence coming into Moscow Center has reached a new threshold. KGB dispatches a flash telegram to every residency worldwide. The message is stark. American forces may be on alert. A nuclear first strike under cover of Able Archer may have begun. In East Germany and Poland, nuclear-capable aircraft are placed on high alert. The Soviet Fourth Air Army stands down all regular flight operations and begins loading nuclear warheads onto combat bombers. This has never happened before in peacetime. Group of Soviet forces Germany places fighter bombers on 30-minute alert. 75 of 150 mobile nuclear missile launchers disappear into forest cover across Eastern Europe. A Soviet submarine descends beneath the Arctic ice, undetectable to American sonar. Yuri Andropov is governing from a clinic outside Moscow, gravely ill, bedridden, with no direct communication to the Politburo. He has never visited the United States. He does not understand that what he is watching is theater, and the weapon is cocked. Now imagine you are Rainer Rupp, West German, head of NATO's current intelligence group in Brussels. You have access to every classified document moving through NATO headquarters. You are also, secretly, an East German spy. On November 9th, his East German handlers make urgent contact. Moscow needs to know, is Able Archer real? Rupp scans every document in his reach, every classified file, every intelligence summary. He sends the complete package to East Berlin with all serial numbers intact, so Moscow can verify nothing is missing. His message: there is no evidence of a genuine attack being prepared. None. He follows it with daily updates. KGB Chief Vladimir Khrushchev would later say in a 2005 television interview that Rupp's actions kept the conflict from escalating. A NATO spy, a traitor by the laws of his nation, may have prevented nuclear war. Rupp was arrested in 1993, sentenced to 12 years in prison. When asked if he saved the world, he said only, "I'm not so presumptuous." Meanwhile, on the NATO side, there is one man watching Soviet alert indicators accumulate in real time. U.S. Air Force Lieutenant General Leonard Perroots, Assistant Chief of Staff for Intelligence, U.S. Air Forces, Europe. The 4th Air Army going to high alert, nuclear warheads being loaded. 36 Soviet surveillance flights over NATO territory, described later as unprecedented. Every instinct in the military playbook says, if they alert, you alert back. Perroots does not reciprocate. He recommends against raising NATO's readiness level. He does not fully understand why. He acts, as the President's Intelligence Advisory Board will later put it, out of instinct, not informed guidance. His instinct breaks the escalatory feedback loop. Because if NATO had raised its alert level in response to Soviet alert, and the Soviets had seen that, they would have raised theirs again. And then NATO, and then the Soviets. Until the fiction became reality. November 11, 1983, Able Archer 83 concludes. The exercise ends. Soviet forces observe that no strike materializes. The nuclear alert is stood down. The warheads are unloaded. The submarines surface. The mobile missiles return to garrison. 1 week later, the Soviet Minister of Defense publishes a warning in Pravda. NATO's military exercises, he writes, are becoming increasingly difficult to distinguish from a real deployment of armed forces for aggression. The message is unambiguous. They know what they saw. So how close did it actually get? This is where historians disagree, and the disagreement matters because it shapes how we understand the danger we were in. The maximalist view comes from the 1990 report of the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board, PFAB, declassified in 2015. It concludes that the United States may have inadvertently placed its relationship with the Soviet Union on a hair trigger. It confirms that nuclear warheads were loaded onto Soviet bombers, that the U.S. intelligence community did not, at the time or for years afterward, attach sufficient weight to the possibility that the war scare was real. The revisionist view, advanced by historian Simon Miles in 2020 using Warsaw Pact archives, argues the danger has been seriously overstated. Key Soviet leaders, Marshal Akrameyev, Ambassador Dobrynin, Deputy Foreign Minister Kornienko, all denied knowledge of any genuine war scare. Akrameyev told a journalist he couldn't even remember Able Archer specifically. The most dangerous exercises, he said, were Autumn Forge and Reforger, the large troop movements that preceded it, not the command post drill itself. Both views contain truth. No smoking gun proves the Kremlin leadership was seconds from ordering a launch. But the physical actions, the warheads loaded, the missiles dispersed, the submarine under the ice, those are documented. Those happened. The PFIAB's own conclusion is perhaps the most precise. There may have existed a serious potential for inadvertent escalation due to misperception at lower levels of command. Not a finger on the button at the top, but fingers on triggers all the way down. And then there is the question of what happened in the days that followed. because the most important consequence of Able Archer 83 did not occur in a bunker. It occurred in the mind of Ronald Reagan. Through the intelligence being passed by Gordievsky, who was still inside the KGB at the time, not yet defected, British intelligence transmitted a crucial message to Washington. The Soviets genuinely feared Able Archer was real. Reagan's National Security Advisor, McFarlane, reported the president's reaction as one of genuine anxiety. Reagan wrote in his diary that he had been struck by how an aggressive, confident United States looked from the other side of the Iron Curtain. This is the man who called the Soviet Union an evil empire, who funded SDI, who authorized the Pershing II deployment, and he was genuinely surprised to discover that the other side was afraid of him. The lesson Reagan took from Able Archer was direct and consequential. His posture began to shift from confrontation to a willingness for engagement. The groundwork for the Geneva Summit of November 1985 was being laid. December 8, 1987, Reagan and Gorbachev signed the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty in Washington. Every Pershing II missile in Europe is eliminated. Every Soviet SS-20 is eliminated. The weapon that nearly triggered war is dismantled. Gordievsky defected in September 1985, smuggled out of the Soviet Union by British SIS. CIA Director Bill Casey flew immediately to Britain to debrief him. Reagan later thanked Gordievsky personally in the Oval Office. It was the first time a KGB officer had ever been in that room. And what of the Perroots Memorandum, the document that first described how close it had all come? It was classified in 1989, partially released in 2021. Then, in 2025, the U.S. State Department quietly deleted 15 pages of it from the official historical record. The first known instance in history of the State Department removing previously declassified and published material from an official foreign relations of the United States volume. The National Security Archive published the deleted pages in November 2025. So what do we take from all of this? What does Able Archer 83 actually mean 40 years later? It means that nuclear deterrence is not a stable equilibrium. It is a system maintained by human beings with imperfect information, institutional biases, and psychological blind spots. And it can fail. It means that Operation Ryan, a system designed to prevent war by detecting it, actually increased the probability of war by making Soviet analysts see threats everywhere. The instrument of safety became the instrument of danger. It means that mirror imaging, assuming the adversary understands your intentions the way you do, is one of the most dangerous cognitive failures in international relations. NATO thought the exercise was obviously fake. The Soviets could not afford to assume that. And it means that individuals matter. Stanislav Petrov, working a night shift. Leonard Perroots, trusting an instinct. Rainer Rupp, feeding documents to East Berlin. Robert McFarlane, vetoing a scheduling decision. Any one of them making a different choice, and this is a different world. Today, as NATO and Russia conduct large exercises near contested borders, in the Baltic, in the Black Sea, in the Arctic, Able Archer's lesson endures. Routine procedure in extreme tension is not routine at all. In November 1983, the world came as close to nuclear war as it has since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Not because anyone wanted war, not because anyone made a reckless decision to launch, but because two massive armed, frightened institutions looked at each other across a fog of incomplete information and almost flinched. The exercise ended on November 11th. The warheads were unloaded, the alert was canceled, and the world went back to not knowing how close it had come.